Hi, this is Matt with State of Flex here with a review for Ghostbusters Afterlife. This is a movie that I really quite enjoyed. Some critics have been attacking this film as being a somewhat hollow ride down nostalgia highway, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think this film leans heavily on nostalgia for the original franchise, the original two movies, particularly that first one. It really doesn't acknowledge the second one, I don't think, ever in the film. But I take a little bit of umbrage with that. That's something I'll get into in a little bit here. But this film was really quite striking for me. It is humorous like the first one was. There's a lot of great comedic beats and whatnot, but it isn't strictly a comedy. It's also an action film, as the first one was. The first one was really one of the first movies that kind of blended genres in such a creative and clever way of being both a comedy and an action film and a horror film, and this movie also utilizes the horror elements quite well. There's a couple really effective jump scares, and yeah, so like I said before, this is pretty much a direct sequel to that very first movie, ignoring the two other Ghostbuster properties that came in between, as well as the various animated shows, and picks up with where the story kind of was thought dormant. At the end of the first Ghostbusters, you will remember that the Ghostbusters brought down Gozer, the Gozerian, and New York was freed. The city loved the Ghostbusters. This movie picks up 30 years later, with 30 plus years later, with one of the Ghostbusters having lived in seclusion in Oklahoma, and after his passing, he ends up passing on his home to his estranged daughter and her granddaughter. And it's through the children, the granddaughter and grandson of Egon, that the story reignites itself. The kids slowly uncover who it was that their grandfather really was, and slowly learns about what the Ghostbusters is. Sprinkled throughout the film are just tons of Easter eggs for the first Ghostbusters movie. And that's where I think this thing kind of is make or break, because of how it utilizes nostalgia. I think there's really two ways of utilizing nostalgia. And for this property, I think nostalgia was utilized really quite well. I'm going to liken it to Star Wars, right? Nostalgia done bad, in my mind, is The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens, in my mind, is a worthless movie because it utilizes nostalgia and your love for that character, those characters and that world and whatnot, but it only gives you exact replicas of the original Star Wars movie. It's beat for beat A New Hope. This is not a criticism that you're going to be hearing for the first time. If you are a fan of The Force Awakens, I'm sure this criticism has been hurled at you in the past. 1 year after The Force Awakens came out, there was another movie, Rogue One, which was the prequel to the very first Star Wars movie, littered with Easter eggs and just brimming with nostalgia for that original film. So you had two movies in a 2-year span that were just like, in essence, nostalgia bait for that first Star Wars movie, right? One did it right, one did it wrong. I already established that I felt that Force Awakens is nostalgia done wrong. I think Rogue One is nostalgia done right. It's utilizing the things you're familiar with, presenting them or spinning them to you in ways that are slightly unexpected. Sometimes it's a little too on the nose, and you just kind of like stick your nose up at it. So I don't think that movie's a perfect movie, but I thought the nostalgia in Rogue One really quite worked. And that's what this is. This is for all wants and purposes, a sequel to Ghostbusters. This is Ghostbusters 2. The way that it should have been, probably. It's a better movie than the real Ghostbusters 2, I will say that as well. But it takes what you're familiar with from the first one, different elements, different props, lots and lots of props and locations and certainly characters sprinkle throughout. And that is... that works because it works emotionally for the characters in this film, and the characters in this film, they go to great lengths to establish as their own individual characters and not replicas of other characters within the franchise. And that really like sung for me. McKenna Grace is absolutely spectacular as Egon's granddaughter. She is really, really good. She plays a character named Phoebe. She's kind of like the shining force. She has a best friend, another young little kid who I'm sure we'll be seeing more of in other films, because he also stands out. He plays Podcast is the character's handle that he goes by, and he's really he really shines. Finn Wolfhard is always fantastic. Though he's probably the weakest element of the movie for me. Paul Rudd is great and does his Paul Ruddiness. This movie's embrace of science and how science is cool and really just punk rock, I thought was really, really fun. Yeah, as I say, I really liked the humor, the horror, the action, all of it. The spectacle really worked. But what worked best for me is the final couple minutes of the movie. Throughout the whole film, the film lingers with you because of your emotional attachment to the world of Ghostbusters without being presented with the Ghostbusters you're familiar with from that first movie. As the movie goes further on, more and more elements start making it feel more and more like the original Ghostbusters, until you are given the final couple minutes of this movie, which is just Ghostbusters on a high. And I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely cried. I was openly weeping at the climax of this film. It's so beautiful and so poetic and such a touching love letter to these characters, this franchise, this world. Yeah, I give this one a strong recommendation. A very strong 3 stars from me. Ghostbusters 3 gets the 3. It's better than Ghostbusters 2. It's better than the Ghostbusters reboot, which has now been rechristened Answer the Call. That also is a much better movie than people give it credit for, and I think for my money that movie is funnier than this movie. So I'll let that sort of weigh in there for a minute. But yeah, Ghostbusters Afterlife is a worthwhile is what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I just got distracted by my dog. Time well spent watching Ghostbusters Afterlife. This Thanksgiving holiday, if you're looking for a movie to see, please, you owe it to yourself. Ghostbusters was the first franchise that I ever fell in love with. I remember the first time I saw the very first movie was in 1988. I absolutely fell in love with the movie, particularly the Sigourney Weaver character. And then obviously I loved Venkman, because who didn't at the time? As time went on and I grew older, Egon became my favorite. And so when Harold Ramis passed about a decade ago, that was one of those deaths that really just quite had quite a weight on me. This film honors Harold Ramis in a really beautiful way throughout the whole thing. Making the whole movie be about his legacy was powerful, as he was the original writer of, along with Dan Aykroyd, of the first Ghostbusters movie. He wrote both of them. He's an excellent filmmaker in his own right. And as I say, his passing really quite hurt. But Ghostbusters was the first franchise that I fell in love with before Star Wars, before Indiana Jones, or any number of things afterwards. it was Ghostbusters. And I'm happy to say that the legacy lives on in this beautiful movie, especially those closing moments. Tears. I'm going to get choked up again just talking about it. But anyway, Thanksgiving's coming. Spend time in the theater. Check this one out. It is worth it. The spectacle is fantastic. It's a bit of a slow burn. I guess that would be one of my two criticisms. It's a bit of a slow burn. Also, the score is completely underwhelming. It's essentially all of the score from just the first movie. Just they changed some of the arrangements, but there's no original music to it, and that was kind of disappointing and mostly distracting. Like, give me a couple bars of it. I think the score for Rambo, the fourth Rambo movie, is done well, because it gives you the bars that you need to know that you're in Rambo's world or whatever from the previous installments, but it's its own music throughout the rest, and quite good music. This would have benefited from that kind of treatment. Give us bars that sound Ghostbusters-y. Don't give us the whole score of Ghostbusters again and change nothing outside of simple arrangements. There's only, from my ear, there was only one original new piece of score, and it was in the final scene of the film. And it's the most beautiful and rousing moment of the film. So it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb that the rest of the composer has it in him. The rest of the movie should have honored that and honored him, really, in showing that he can do his own work. But anyway, I digress. Ghostbusters, really good movie. Check it out. Like, subscribe if you want to hear more of this. Let me know what you thought of the movie as well. And let me know if you want me to review the three prior Ghostbusters movies in the comments down below. Peace.